The coolest part of Grit, and also I think its weakest point, is its Tenacity line. Whenever you play cards in Grit, those go into your Tenacity line, and it slowly builds up over time, providing you a way to block damage by parrying, so to flip cards and prevent damage equal to the cost, or by building up your Tenacity in such a way that you have a bunch of face-up cards, you discard all of them and deal damage equal to the combined total of all the face-up cards. This is your Tenacity total. And so, what we figured out in playtesting is that functionally, every high impact, high cost card then functions as a high value parrying or defensive card. All Out deals 6 damage, and then when I put it into my Tenacity, I now have a block for 3 whenever I want. And that just doesn't make a lot of sense. If I were to play a weaker 1 cost attack, I would deal less damage, but I would also get a weaker defense card. So essentially, the trade-off is, why would I ever play a small card with low impact when I can play a bunch of high cost cards with high impact and high blocking potential? Now, other games have this where cards can be used as blocking cards. However, I think they do it more efficiently. Flesh and Blood, for example, has a really good ratio of your attacks are well incentivized to do a lot more cool things than the defense values of those cards. Meaning defense is naturally less appreciated, is less valuable than attacking. It's an attacking game, and that's what Grit is as well. So the changes that need to be made to the Tenacity line is that cards originally would flip to prevent damage equal to their cost. Now cards can exhaust to prevent damage, but they can only ever prevent 1 damage. So in this case, All Out and Poison Trap, if we were being attacked, we could prevent 1 damage by exhausting Poison Trap and 1 damage by exhausting All Out. And then when a card is exhausted, you can't exhaust it again. And so when you take a rest action and you're performing a bunch of cool cards and you're playing a lot of things and you're activating effects, when you take the rest action and you swap your heroes and you draw a new hand of cards, then just like every other card, and as the rules are now, all of your cards in play, including your Tenacity cards, are then readied. Meaning, if you exhaust a card, you can still, at the end of your next turn, will ready again to be used to defend. Now, what does that mean for exhausted cards? Well, exhausted cards now no longer add their cost to your Tenacity total for your ultimate attack. The way the rules worked for ultimate attacks previously was that all face-up cards, when your ultimate attack was performed, would be added up, and then that would be your total for your ultimate attack. So in this case, we'd have 3, 6, 7, 8 damage with an ultimate attack. However, now, if a card is exhausted, we only count face-up ready cards. In this case, if we did an ultimate attack, it would be 3, 4 damage in total, and all these other cards would be discarded. And there's actually a change there we can talk about as well. But let's finish with the defensive mechanics. So cards in your Tenacity can now exhaust to prevent 1 damage. Irregardless of their cost, they always prevent 1 damage. Additionally, you can flip cards face down to prevent 1 damage. In this case, if we were attacked now for, let's say, 5 damage, we have an armor of 2, so we need to prevent the difference, that's 3. I could exhaust from beyond to prevent 1 damage, and I could flip Poison Trap face down to prevent 2 damage, and I could flip All Out down to prevent the 3rd damage. And boom, I've defended the hit, albeit losing 2 of my cards. And now I've got all exhausted cards and non-exhausted cards. Now it's good to note, let's go back to the same situation. The opponent is hitting me for 5 damage, and I have an armor of 2, like all heroes do. I need to prevent the difference, 3 damage. So I could, once again, flip cards to prevent 1. However, I cannot both exhaust and flip a card in the same attack. I can only do one of those things. In this case, I could exhaust from beyond to prevent 1 damage. I could not additionally flip it. I can only do one or the other. I could, if I wanted to, flip from beyond now to prevent 1 damage, but that has more niche scenarios and why you would want to do that in the first place. So the idea would be to exhaust your cards first, and then if you need to, flip them face down, essentially losing the value they might add after turn, because face down cards cannot be used to parry at all. These cards are basically bricks. These are neutral cost, zero cost cards. This is the way that their face down cards are interpreted, but they cannot do anything. They can't exhaust and they can't flip to prevent damage. So these cards don't do anything on defense, and they don't do anything with an ultimate attack. So now we have a Tenacity line that favors playing more smaller cards if you want to play defensively. Or you play high value, high impact, high cost cards for their effect and to win the game, and they now are just lowly and not so great attack defense cards. Meaning cards that cost more, these 3 cost cards, 2 cost, 3 cost, 4 cost cards, now are worth so much more with ultimate attacks, because if you can keep these from being exhausted or flipped face down, your ultimate attack is that much stronger, meaning you're more incentivized to make ultimate attacks, even if they're not perfect. So that's the large change for Tenacity. Just to go over what that looks like. Originally, you could flip cards face down to prevent damage equal to their cost. The problem with this is that high value attack and skill cards now are also high value defense cards, and that's not okay. There's no trade-off there. So now all cards can either exhaust or flip face down during an attack to prevent 1 damage. So you can't do both though with 1 card. I can exhaust Shield Bash to prevent 1 damage. I could flip all out to prevent 1 damage. I could not flip, exhaust, and flip face down to prevent 2 damage. Additionally, face down cards cannot be used to parry at all. Finally, when making an ultimate attack, face down cards are still considered 0 cost neutral cards. Exhausted cards do not count towards your Tenacity total, and the only things that matter for ultimate attacks are face up at ready cards in your Tenacity, meaning this would only deal 2 damage. Now, let's take into account one last thing when we're talking about ultimate attacks, because we're not done talking about ultimate attacks yet. Enhancements now go in your Tenacity. This means that when you exhaust them to perform their effect, in this case, Intervene has an action, exhaust, discard 1 of your Tenacity cards, place the top card of your deck into your Tenacity. Because of this, when I exhaust it to use its ability, it now no longer counts towards my Tenacity total. And in fact, when I make an ultimate attack, I would discard all my cards, meaning I would no longer get the value of these enhancements over time. I would instead just maybe get 1 or 2, depending on how many times I was able to use it. So the change we made to ultimate attacks is that you can make 1 ultimate attack per turn. And you can only make an ultimate attack when your Tenacity is full. And the number of cards that it is full is 6. I think this is probably the weakest part of the rule because I don't know what's correct yet. That's something that requires a lot more testing to figure out what number of cards in your Tenacity makes the most sense. And finally, when you make an ultimate attack, you can discard as many cards as you want from your Tenacity to do the ultimate attack. For every card you discard, only the cards that are face up and ready will count their costs into your Tenacity total. So let's do some easy examples, right? In this case, let's say I have this as my Tenacity line. I would make an ultimate attack and I would want to get rid of just these 2 cards. I would deal 4 damage for my ultimate attack and the rest of these cards would stay in my Tenacity. It's good to note, position in the Tenacity line doesn't matter. Now let's go over another example. If I had Poison Trap right here, exhausted, I would make an ultimate attack and I want to get rid of 3 cards because I want to make space. I would get rid of Shield Bash. This would count towards my Tenacity total, so I would deal 3 damage. Discard Poison Trap, which deals no damage because it's exhausted, and a face down card, which deals no damage because it's face down. So I would deal 3 damage and I would discard 3 cards from my Tenacity. Last example here, we have a large Tenacity and I want to get rid of everything but my enhancements because I want to keep them around for later turns. But I don't want anything to do with this face down card. So I'm going to make an ultimate attack once per turn and I'm going to discard 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. I'm going to add up the face up ready costs for 4. And these cards, because this is exhausted and because this is face down, will not count towards that total. So I will be left with a 4 damage ultimate attack, discarding all the cards I've chosen, and left with just my enhancements in my Tenacity. And now, after I perform that, I can activate Thoughtful's action ability here. As an action, exhaust to draw one card and place one card from my hand on top of my deck. I can exhaust that, and then I would perform the rest of my turn. I would rest, putting in something like Katrina, draw to my hand size, and then I would ready all of my cards, meaning these enhancements are now ready to defend if I need them to, or if I'm able to keep healthy or I want to take some hits, I can keep these ready, so that way I can perform their cool effects on my next turn. And that is a lot to say that the Tenacity line has kind of gone through some a growth spurt, I'd like to say. It is matured and is, I think, now a little more rulesy. It's not necessarily as intuitive as it was, but I think overall the Tenacity line functions a lot better in the ecosystem of the game. With the attack numbers, the defense numbers, I think it's really important that the Tenacity line doesn't overly favor one kind of playstyle, whether that's all big attacks and all small attacks, or all enhancements or no enhancements, but rather allows you an expression. And I think that these changes allow for that kind of expression. If I want to play a lot of enhancements, that means now I can play enhancements in my Tenacity, and I can discard all the other cards when I make an ultimate attack to make room for either more enhancements, or to make a big ultimate attack and then make room for other cards that I play in my turn. As well as if I want to play a control-y, low-cost deck, that favors me because I get to play a lot of small cards that then allow me to defend a little bit better to prolong the game for whatever my win condition is. So, or, the last one I swear, I can play a lot of big giant cards to deal a bunch of big hits, and I just have to realize that I'm kind of a glass cannon maybe, where I'm putting these large, very strong cards into my Tenacity, but I'm putting far less into it, meaning my attacks are much stronger, but my defense capabilities are much weaker. So, all to say, I'm happy with the changes so far. They're testing very well, although they're not completely done testing at this moment. So, if you want to help test, hey, let me know. And also, if you made it this far, oh my goodness, thank you so much for watching. You're super awesome, and I really, really appreciate it. So wherever you are, whenever you are in the world, I hope you have a great day, night, morning, weekend, lazy Sunday, happy Easter, Merry Christmas, whatever it is, wherever it is. And I hope to see you in whatever the next video is. So, see ya.